You mentioned the multinational power. We can understand that as a multipolar world
Correct.
conception. I don't know if maybe the key of the economic growth of Russia with the West sanctions are maybe the BRICS group and how we can understand other powers of the South, like other members that are part of BRICS or not, but are not only China.
Yes, I emphasize China probably because I'm located in the United States and I'm used to thinking of the big player. But you are quite right. The rest of the world will play its own role, will not all be controlled, neither by the United States. Look at the obvious splitting now between the United States and Europe, the desperate effort of the Europeans to try to figure out. Spain is a little different. I understand that. Well, it's very important. The difference of your attitude in Spain to immigration against the rest of the advanced world is very interesting, and I would be, like to learn how that works in Spain, given what almost everybody else, is doing. But here, let me assure you that the Europeans are in even worse position than the United States. The decline of Europe is, for me, as an observer, and I should explain, I'm an American. I was born in the United States, but my mother is German, was born in Berlin, and my father is French. So I speak French and German. I have all my life, even though I was born here in the United States. So I pay attention to Europe. What is going on in Europe is extraordinary. Their economies are in terrible condition, and they are desperately now trying to support their economies by going over to a enormous military Keynesian economics, which is not going to save them. They do not have the support. They haven't spent 75 years building up their military. You can't do that overnight. They are never going to have the military the United States already has and Russia and China together already have. So who are they defending against? They can't. This is pure internal politics, and it's going to be moving wealth from social services to the military. Look at Germany. Mr. Merz with his $80 billion a year, that's a subsidy to German business. It's a way of giving German businesses preferred government contracts at a profit so they don't leave Germany to go to the United States or elsewhere in Europe because they can't afford the energy, which is the sanctions against Russia closed off from them. It is an incredible watching, and it is already and will continue to be an attack on the working class's standard of living. Mr. Starmer just ordered jets from the United States. What for? His economy is in much worse shape than anybody else's. He can't do that. And he will be voted out of office because of it by his own working class, which already hates him. This is a dead end. Now, in terms of the global South, I think you are seeing a remarkable uh, renovation, if you like, of Russia in terms of its social position. I mean, I believe that the absurd bombing of Iran, followed by the ceasefire for Iran and Israel, is number one a policy about Russia. It's a fear that if you allow the war between Iran and Israel to continue, Israel will lose, Iran will win, and it will win with the support of Russia. And it'll do that about the same time that Russia finishes winning the war in Ukraine. And that will make Russia much bigger a social force in the world than it was 3 years ago when the war in Ukraine began. These are impossible outcomes. Even Mr. Trump, who doesn't understand much, can see this has to stop. The Israelis are gone. Israel is now simply a military exercise. They have no economy left. And, while they're committing genocide in Palestine, they're starting a war with Iran. That's crazy. They can't do it. They can't sustain it. They don't have the missiles. The United States doesn't even have the missiles. They were outmaneuvered by the Russians and the Chinese over the last 15 years. And that's because they were busy trying to cope with a declining empire and did not have the focus on the rise of their competitor. And now it's too late. It's finished. And now we will watch a steady decline. And let me again focus you, because I think it's worth it. The ability of a Muslim socialist to win the mayoralty of New York City is astonishing. It's more of a political explosion than, if I understand correctly, a woman who became mayor of Barcelona a few years ago was a major breakthrough politically there also, for the Catalan movement and all the rest of it. But here, it's a bigger event. Mr. Cuomo, who was defeated, had the support of the Bloomberg financial empire, of a dozen billionaires pouring millions of dollars into that election effort. I'm talking to you from New York City. I voted for Mamdani. I didn't believe he could win, but we voted for him. And he won by a lot all over the city. Mr. Cuomo painted him. He has a beard, a little bit like you do. So they made his skin darker, so he would frighten people as a Muslim, the image in this country of a Muslim terrorist, all of that it's very crude American politics. So this was done against him. We received phone calls in my apartment in New York. Here, I am your neighbor. Don't vote for Mamdani. He is a terrorist. He will remove the police and there'll be crime everywhere. Didn't make any difference. An overwhelming majority of the million people who voted for this man. That is an amazing outcome. His entire mobilization was a mobilization of young people like you. They came to our door, young men, young women, vote for Mamdani. It's extraordinary. He is part of a development. Let me explain. After World War II was over, you have to understand American history a little bit to appreciate what's going on. When the Great Depression hit in 1929, the American working class went sharply to the left politically. In other words, what happened in Germany at that time, where the same thing happened, what happened in France, the United Front in France, Léon Blum, and even in the Republican government in Spain, you had a movement to the left. And in Germany and in Spain and in Italy, there was a reaction and it moved to the right, to fascism. Okay? But that did not happen in the United States. In the United States, from 1929 to 1945, we had a profound movement to the left. Let me explain to you. We had three existing left-wing parties. 2 socialist parties and 1 communist party. And they all grew enormously quickly. Tens and then hundreds of thousands of people got involved in the socialist parties or the communist party. All right. At the same time, we had an upsurge in the labor movement. Millions of people who had never been in a union joined a union. It was called the CIO, Congress of Industrial Organizations. It was the greatest unionization drive in American history. We had never had anything like it before, and we have never had anything like it since, to this day. And they worked together very well. The unions, the 2 socialist parties, and the Communist Party. They had their differences. They argued, they disagreed about many things. But they worked together to build what was called the New Deal Coalition. And here's what it was able to achieve. Number 1, our Social Security system. That's a pension for people 65 and older. There was no pension in the United States until then. We achieved the first minimum wage, and it was set high. We achieved the first unemployment compensation. If you lose your job, the government gives you a check every week for a year or so. And number 4, a government jobs program, 15 million unemployed people hired directly by the government to make national parks, to make ecological projects, and so on. And who paid for this? Because we were in the middle of the Great Depression. The government had no money. And yet it had committed to spending billions. It went to the rich people of America and it hit them with enormous taxes. We taxed the rich. We made them lend their money to the government, which used it to help the mass of people. Okay? This was finished off by World War II. And in World War II, to remind you, the United States was allied with the Soviet Union. For the American capitalist class, this was the greatest shock and horror in American history. Their money had been taken from them to help average people. It was unthinkable such a thing could happen. So when the war was over, 1945, when the president, Roosevelt, who did all of this, was dead, he died, the business community unified itself to conduct a campaign to undo the New Deal. So they went, and the first thing they did was identify the weakest link in the New Deal coalition. That was the Communist Party. So they went to work to change the Communist Party from the militant leader during the Great Depression to the evil spies for the distant Soviet Union. And they arrested them and they deported them and they fired them from their jobs. They effectively destroyed the Communist Party. And when they were finished, you remember McCarthyism, all of that you've all heard about. When they finished, they went through the country again and attacked the socialist parties, explaining to the American people that socialism is exactly the same as capitalism. They just spell the word differently. By the way, that's why my students here in the United States, and I still teach in the university, my students, many of them, have no idea what the difference is between a socialist and a communist. For them, socialist, communist, anarchist, terrorist, Muslim, Democrat, liberal, all the same thing. It's one undifferentiated mass of evil. Okay, here's how bad it was. When I went to the university here, and I would raise my hand, and I would ask a question about Marx or Marxism, my teachers could not answer the question because they made a point of not knowing anything about it. They didn't read Marx. They didn't read Lenin. They didn't read Gramsci. They didn't read any of the thinkers of the Marxist tradition. Even if they were interested, which some were, it was too dangerous for your career to have a reputation of being in any way sympathetic to such ideas. And I should tell you, me personally, I am a product of the American elite education system. I went to Harvard, then I went to Stanford, and I finished at Yale. It's like a joke. So I wave my little pedigree. I am, sitting next to me when I was at Yale was Janet Yellen, who became the finance minister here. So I know these people personally, and I can assure you, I learned my Marxism, but I did that on my own. I did that alone or with other students. But we could not learn it in the school. Forbidden. As the Germans would say, streng verboten. Interdit, the French say. You can't do that. So Americans have no grasp of this. And socialism was, if you said you were a socialist, your political career immediately disappeared. You could not get anything. This lasted from 1945, 46, 47, the late 1940s, until one person broke the taboo, and that person is Bernie Sanders. So he breaks the taboo, he accepts the label socialist for himself, but he is in a corner of the United States, the state of Vermont, which has more cows than people in it. It is a rural, small state. But since Bernie opened it up, socialists have been running for office all over the United States, and a significant number of them have won their seats. The most famous, until yesterday, was a woman named Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who represents a district that is a short walk from where I'm sitting now. I'm sitting in Manhattan. She covers Queens and nearby, part of New York City like I am. But Mr. Mamdani, that's a whole, the city of New York, there's a number one city in this country. It's the financial center of the United States. It's arguably the financial center of global capitalism. For the mayor there to be a socialist, and one who not only does not run away from the label, but embraces the label, that is a major step. And I can assure you that as I'm talking to you, there are socialists in all American cities who are looking at this and going, we can do that too. And you're going to see many more begin to rise up and do it.